My abuelo was about 5 feet tall and was one of the most intimidating people I knew. There's something about being completely unhinged that puts people just a little bit on edge.
Run around.
He was absolutely crazy, no question. And with the rumors about him, was he actually part of a rebellion in his home country? Did he truly escape detection by hiding under his bed? Who knows? I may never know the whole truth about his life, but I wouldn't put much past him. He was basically the embodiment of dance like no one's watching, sing like no one's listening. That was Abuelo. Last week, after a severe stroke and a fall, he was put on life support, and yesterday he was taken off of it. I kind of feel like I don't really have the right to grieve him because we weren't particularly close. I was one of many grandkids, but even being one of many, he never made me feel that way. I always felt important to him, partly because he told me I was important every time that we came to visit him. Even if we didn't spend a lot of time with him during the visit, he would always come and greet us at the door with one of his signature catchphrases, like "Mi casa es su casa," classic. But because he was convinced we didn't know a lick of Spanish, he'd always say, "This is your house, only I pay the bills." He would give me a hug and put his face against mine and say, "You are so beautiful. You look just like me. We are twins." We all know that actions speak louder than words. That's a common understanding in our culture. But I think sometimes with that idea kind of floating around out there, we undercut the importance of actually saying it, of speaking what we want people to hear. And that was something really unique to Abuelo, is that he never failed to say what he wanted to say and to make sure people knew what they meant to him every single time. I believe the best way to process feelings of grief, loss, sadness is through creating something. And it's not that I think that the tendency to consume is wholly bad. I think that the reason we do that is kind of like a self-medicating thing. And that makes sense because if you're hurt and you're in pain, you take a pain medication to help get you through the pain. And in a similar way, we tend to self-medicate. And that's not bad when you're in pain. It is a little bit of a problem because we do have a tendency to get stuck there in that self-medicating phase. I am not a professional, but this is how I understand it works. Dopamine is part of what is involved in rewards, goal setting, motivation, and it's a really important thing for us. But food companies and gaming or media, they've really kind of targeted dopamine in the way our reward centers work to give us high dopamine things, such as sugar, that is just like a dopamine shot to your brain almost. And these kinds of things, if not reined in, can create addictive tendencies. And that's a major part of addiction, is the dopamine, the reward system. So something that can be great can also be turned into something really negative. And dopamine doesn't act by itself. It's completely intertwined with your body and with the other happy hormones like serotonin, where dopamine is more around your motivation and your drive and habit forming. Serotonin is more about your happiness in forms of contentment. So you get serotonin from like sunshine and from being close to family members and talking with family members and things like that. Participating in a hobby that you enjoy can give you a boost of serotonin. So when you're sad and depressed, increasing your serotonin can help with that. So when we create, even if it's something that is part of our grief and part of our loss, it can increase that serotonin around it and help us to better process what we're going through. What we create doesn't necessarily matter so much. It doesn't have to be good. You don't have to share it with anybody. It doesn't even necessarily need to be relevant to what we're going through. I personally like to write songs when I'm depressed, when I'm sad. And my mom is always like, "I love your songs, but why are they all so depressing? Can't you write something uplifting?" And I'm like, well, No, because this is my creative outlet specifically to deal with my emotions and what I'm struggling through. I don't really need to process happy emotions. They're kind of self-explanatory for me. Doesn't really feel necessary to write songs about them. And when I talk about processing grief or processing loss and sadness, I'm not saying get over it, just get past it. I'm talking more about coming to terms with it, accepting it, and being there with it in the moment, and not having our life fall apart despite having that in our life, that event in our life.